Hello everyone, my name is Jason Ramirez and welcome back to Season 4, Episode 3 of the Hit List Podcast, a podcast where me and a guest cross off films from our watch list and discuss them. I'm joined today by film reaction YouTuber known as Honest Movie Reactions on YouTube, Che. Welcome Che, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having here, Jason. Actually, this is my first podcast, so I'm quite excited. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm excited for both of us too. So before we get started, I have two questions for you. Whenever you sit down to watch a movie, do you choose something new or stick to your favorites?
Oh, okay. So as if you know, for my YouTube channel, what I do is I am starting to watch movies now only. So for a few decades, I have not watched many movies and I was not exposed to the Western media as much. So what I do each time is a new movie for me. And sometimes it is chosen for me and sometimes I choose it for myself, but it's always a new movie.
Awesome. So for those of you who are wondering why Shay's on this podcast, because that's exactly her background. I come from a background where I've watched movies since I was practically born. You know, I was like all around it. It was all around me. And to have someone on the show who didn't really grow up around the Western media as much, who was an adult when she started watching films, that's why she's on the show for her perspective on these films today. My second question for you today: if you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, I'm Asian, so I would love to eat steamed rice with anything. Steamed rice is my biggest comfort, so that will be steamed rice with
Steamed rice.
Steamed rice with any accompanying dish. So that will be the best actually for me. I can eat it actually 3 times a day.
It's a good answer. I like that. For me, I'm not sure, but I found out recently, and by recently I mean like 2 years ago, that I'm lactose intolerant now. So
Oh no!
yeah, I hate that
because oh no!
literally everything in the United States, not everything, but they make so much milk in this country, so much dairy that there's even like a cave full of cheese underneath like one of the states, and I didn't even know that until like a couple weeks ago. Like, wow, really? We have more cheese than the French? Okay.
You have to become lactose intolerant to figure out how prevalent it is in each and every food that you eat. Yeah.
And speaking of the French, so that's actually one of the movies we're going to talk about today. So the films we will be discussing today are Forrest Gump and The Duellists. Forrest Gump is a 1994 American comedy drama film directed by Robert Zemeckis and written by Eric Roth. It is based on the 1986 novel of the same name by Winston Groom. The story depicts several decades in the life of Forrest Gump, a slow-witted and kind-hearted man from Alabama who witnesses and unwittingly influences several defining historical events in the 20th century United States. The film stars Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, Gary Sinise, Mykelti Williamson, and Sally Field. This film was on Che's list. Why was this film on your list, Che?
Okay, Jason, actually, this has been a movie to watch for me for a long time. This has been one thing that I've been wanting to watch for a long time, and I did not make the opportunity to do so. And when you are watching this is when you really feel like you have been living under a rock because everybody has watched it and you haven't. But it was proposed to me by my subscribers and also my patrons at our Patreon. So that was when I finally watched it. But it has been in my bucket list for a long time.
Yeah, I will say it's part of popular culture in the United States. Where even if you've never watched the movie, you know what happens in the movie.
Exactly. But actually, the funny thing is, I did not know any of the characters. Like the actors, I had no idea who they were. And so that was the first... I think this is my first Tom Hanks movie, Forrest Gump. So that was really new for me. And I was wondering, after I watched it, why didn't I watch it before? But it is really popular indeed.
No, I think this might be your second because you saw Saving Private Ryan, right?
Yes, I did. But actually, the Forrest Gump came before, and then even though it was released earlier, the Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, okay. Because you said it's the first Tom Hanks movie for you.
Yes.
Tom Hanks, he was in both.
Yes, exactly. He was in Saving Private Ryan as well, but in the sequence I watched, the Forrest Gump was first,
Oh.
and yeah.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Okay. So, what did you think of the movie? Because you say I'm hearing high praises right now. What did you think overall?
It's 10 out of 10 for me. It's a brilliant movie. There's nothing to pinpoint for me like, oh, this could have been improved. Everything was spot on, from the script to the performances, and the scenarios, the settings they had done perfect, and really kept me captured throughout the whole movie. And I really loved the way they did the narration, because there is a narration going on from Forrest Gump's end throughout the whole movie. I thought it was a brilliant way to do a movie, and with his the southern accent, it was such a lovely touch. I really loved it, and with Alabama, I've never been to the US, but for me, I have watched a lot of documentaries about the world. So Alabama, it was so beautifully done, and the storyline was such a unique one. And I will talk about the characters, I think, a bit later on. So when I watched it, I was blown away. Really, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's very emotional, but at the same time, it can make you, like, the first half made me laugh. I was laughing my ass off. But then the second half, I was crying and crying and crying. I was like, well, looking at myself, why am I crying when there is a funny thing going as well? Because there's so much irony and symbolism. So it was a beautiful movie.
Yeah, I will say Robert Zemeckis, he's one of my favorite directors. He directed Back to the Future and another movie before that called Romancing the Stone.
Oh, he was the director for the Back to the Future. I loved that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
When you learn about this, you see like how versatile these directors are. He is like one, I don't want to say classic filmmakers, even though it is from like the 90s and 80s, so his films that like were kind of his peak. But it's the type of film that you don't really see much nowadays, because the way he does his films, he always moves the camera to like where the focus is. If you remember in the New Year's scene when they're at the bar, and if they go from the crowd to Lieutenant Dan, that's one of his trademarks.
Okay.
You'll see some stuff and then go to the focus of the scene. Other directors, they'll like cut, like do different scenes, and they'll cut like B-roll into it, which isn't like a wrong way to do it, but it's just more work to do the moving scene. That's what I appreciate more about it. And like you said, the emotional parts, he thought it would be popular in the United States, and it was. It's very popular to this day as well. And he thinks the reason why it did so well outside the country is because it's not just a story about America, it's a story about love.
Yes.
It's a story about a man's love for his mother, for his friends, for his men in the military. And it's about grief as well. Things that are universal to everyone.
Exactly.
Who is your favorite character in the movie?
Okay, there are a ton of favorite characters, to be very honest. I loved a lot of them for so many different reasons. But obviously the main character, Forrest Gump, I loved that character because I've never watched a movie. Okay, here is a person who's talking who has not watched that many movies. Okay, so unfortunately, but I've never seen or heard of a character like Forrest Gump, because he's a clean canvas. I've never seen a clean canvas, and I love the way how they portrayed world issues and love, sexual abuse, and the war, and all these historical things that happened through a person who is like, he does not have a biasness. He's like a newspaper back then, not now. Back then newspapers were factual, there was no opinion shared. So he is like that, and we see the world and the things that's discussed through this really clean and clear canvas. That's why I loved Forrest Gump's character, and because he does not make opinions, he doesn't share any opinion. He's like, this is what happened, that is it. It's like, it's so sweet. You don't come across that many people who are like that innocent in life. So I think my favorite character undoubtedly is Forrest Gump. But I can't say it, like, it's not the only one character. I love the other characters as well, like Forrest Gump's mother. the sweetest lady. I was like thinking, I would love to be her one day. It would be really, really nice. She's like, the way she hoisted her son, who was actually special, but to make him feel how normal he was, it's beautiful. Because nowadays I feel like we all try to say, oh, you are special, but actually what people want to feel is normal. You are one of the normal people. So the way she did it, it's brilliant. Love that character as well.
Yeah. Forrest Gump, he has no agenda essentially. So that's why he's kind of like a clean canvas, like you said. And that's something that you can see why people like him, is because he doesn't really care what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on because he doesn't really need to know. He just needs to do what he wants to do. And Forrest Gump's mom, also a solid character. And when she died, that was like a very sad moment in the film. And she did everything for him. She was very sweet.
Indeed. Like the way, how strong she was amazing. Like she doesn't look like this strong person, but she was the one who built the foundation for Forrest Gump. If not, he would have been a very, he would not have the confidence he had in himself. He just aced everything he did because his mother was saying, you are just normal. The way when she said that, I may be missing the words, but she was saying, if the God intended all of us to be equal, he will give all of us braces in our legs. It was like really this beautiful how you can actually build confidence in a child that way.
So in the film, was there anything that surprised you?
Yes, actually surprising, but at the same time it was hilarious for me. It was when they dropped Forrest Gump in these historical scenes. Like he was with President J.F. Kennedy, and there was President Johnson, and the racial issue in Alabama. I was like brilliant, and it was so hilarious when he showed his buttocks. the president. I don't know. I thought it was brilliantly done because the way they actually connected it to the real scenarios in the world back then, and especially in the US, it was really well done. That was surprising to me actually.
Yeah, so some of those scenes, so for like the archive footage that they got for that, they had, according to Robert Zemeckis, miles and miles of film to go through of like this old archive footage. And they'll find a scene, they'll find like some footage and see how to connect it to the film. So when he meets John F. Kennedy, that's not at the Oval Office. It's not in the office. It's actually at their garden outside the office. So they had to like rework everything to make it look like it was in the office. Some of the behind the scenes stuff looks meticulous because Tom Hanks, the actor who played Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
He had to be against a blue screen, and it was the first time he used blue screen. He didn't know what it was before because it was 1993. They never used that beforehand. And he's like, why are we using blue screen? And Zemeckis had to explain that blue is the only color that's not available on the skin, like in any color of the skin. So that's how they're able to digitally rotoscope him into the image. And they'll have like the footage playing, and they'll have him like try to sync his body with the movement of the person who was actually there. And he had to do it quite a few times to make sure he got each moment correct.
Okay. That's really interesting. It's good to know that it was the first time for the actor as well. Because when I watched it, I was like, this is brilliant. I did not expect that. The first time I saw, I was like, this is funny. But then when it kept happening, I was like, it's a brilliant use of the like historical scenarios. But it's nice to know how it was done, Jason, because I really did not know that they used this blue screen and did this whole setup.
Was there anything else that surprised you beyond the archive footage?
I actually wanted to know. This is something I wanted to know whether. Because they had the Vietnam scenes. I was wondering, was it actually in Vietnam itself that they did this movie, or was it in Thailand or Cambodia or something similar?
So it was actually South Carolina.
There you go. That's
It was South Carolina.
really wouldn't be surprised.
It's not just you, but like even Vietnam veterans were confused. Like they say it looked as close to Vietnam
It did.
as they've seen it on screen before. And they even planted trees to like make it look like Vietnam.
Whoa, it really worked so well because it's the tropical the trees, right? And the plants and all. So I was really confused. It looked definitely Vietnam. My thinking was it done in like Thailand or Cambodia, which is actually border in Vietnam anyway. Whoa, I did not think it was in US itself. But I'm not surprised because that's so good.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that surprised me the most was when the principal left Forrest's house after like sleeping with his mom, and he said something to him, and then young Forrest, like the little kid, like like imitating what he was saying in the house. I don't remember seeing that before, but I was like, that is genius.
but you know the funny thing is actually if somebody asked me what are my like least favorite characters out of the movies, let's say, right, I know a lot of people will say that's just a funny thing, a lot of people will say it's like Jenny, but it is not for me. I really like Jenny's character and I really sympathize towards what happened to her. But actually, one of the characters I wouldn't like is the principal because he really made use of that whole situation. But it was absolutely funny when when he came out and spoke to Forrest. His only thing like that was quite funny actually.
And the thing is, I don't think Forrest knew how much that could have hurt that man. Like.
Exactly, like a buffoon. I don't know what he was doing.
I just realized that like most of the characters I don't like in the movie are mostly men. I didn't even realize until you just said it right now. Almost all of Jenny's boyfriends, I didn't like any of them, especially that guy that hit her right in front of Forrest during that Black Panther party. Oh man, because he was the only one that made Forrest yell.
Yes, exactly. And the thing is, I think the men Jenny was going for at that time were because she had lost confidence in herself, and what I see in Jenny's character is like she felt so insufficient and in front of Forrest because she knows how innocent, pure, and a virgin he is actually. So for her, it was not her fault. What happened to her when you watch the movie, it was actually what happened to her at home with her father.
Exactly.
But which Forrest did not realize. He thought it was a very loving father who was touching and kissing them all the time. But it was something else that was going on. So, but Jenny took it so personally. She thought she's a lowly person. But I think the men who were with, so she was getting attracted to these men who did not value her the same way Forrest did. So I think undoubtedly, yes, they treated her the way they were actually. But actually, for me, another couple of characters I didn't like, these are so insignificant characters actually, is when Forrest first got his braces and he's walking in the town with his mother and his foot gets stuck in this gutter on the roadside, and there's two old men are watching it like they have seen this alien out of nowhere. They're not even helping the boy. I was like furious. You haven't seen a boy with braces? Just like the mother is asking. Like, those are the characters that I don't like, actually.
The most insignificant characters. Even though you see them throughout the movie, they don't do anything but watch the movie, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they just add a bit of a spice to the movie, but they are very insignificant. But the thing is that those are the ones I don't actually like.
What were you thinking as you finished watching the film?
There was a ton of things going on in my head, Jason, because like I said, when I watched the movie, in the beginning, it was really funny how it was portrayed. And towards the mid and the end, it became such a, there were so many metaphors, so many symbolism and irony in the movie that was reflected through Forrest Gump. So when I finished watching, I was crying. I really cried so much. But I thought it was a beautiful movie that touched upon so many things that really mattered in so many people's lives. But it was portrayed in this special way through this clean canvas of a person. Like there was a ton of things to think about. Like I was thinking about Forrest Gump, obviously, because it was the main character and I loved the character. But at the same time, I loved I will call him Lieutenant Dan because I use the British English, so Lieutenant Dan for you. But his character arc was really beautiful because his representation was more of what the war, how the war affected the soldiers, and the loneliness he felt, and the how left out he felt. It was heartbreaking. It was absolutely heartbreaking to watch Lieutenant Dan. And I love the character arc of Jenny. That is the beauty of it, I see. Like most of the movies, we see the character arc when it comes to the main role. Here, in Forrest Gump, the Forrest Gump didn't change. He was Forrest Gump from get-go. He was this clean and clear person, and there's no character arc. He's like this straight arrow throughout the movie. But the characters around him had this arc that was happening, like for Lieutenant Dan, and then at the same time for Jenny. So I really love this. It's kind of a movie. After you watch, you can think for days actually what was happening, what they said about the mother, how she raised him. There was a lot of things that was going on in my head. It was a beautiful movie, seriously.
I will say one of the characters that resonated the most with me was Lieutenant Dan, because when you first meet him, he's not taking the war seriously as he should, like as kind of like the veterans did back then. I'm not too sure. Most of what I know about the Vietnam War is from like movies and from books as well. So I don't know the full scope of what happened. I just know it shouldn't have happened. Just like most wars anyway. So he thought he knew what his destiny was. He was always chasing his destiny, which was to die in the war for America. And when Forrest saves him, he's mad at him because he doesn't know what his purpose is anymore. And he struggled for years to find his purpose. And he's just, how do you say, depressed. He's frustrated at the world, and you even see the frustration when he first sees Forrest for the first time in years, when he essentially looks very homeless. He hasn't taken care of himself, and he says, "They gave you a Presidential Medal of Honor." He's like, yes. Lieutenant Dan. You see how like different the responses are to each other. Like Lieutenant Dan is just so mad at him, but Forrest is just so happy to see him again.
Yeah, it's so sweet that. Sorry to interrupt you, Jason. It's so sweet that they like Lieutenant Dan, because he's so boiling with anger. Actually, he's frustrated at himself, not at Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
But he says, "They gave you, an imbecile, this a medal of honor." Then he's like, Forrest Gump, "Yes, they did." So cute. So cute.
And then you see like his transformation afterwards. Like you see how Forrest didn't really have to spend time with Lieutenant Dan. I think he was there with him for like a couple of nights, because I guess for Forrest it was just to like catch up with him. And I guess that's what really saved Lieutenant Dan from falling off the wayside, because he had conversations with him that he didn't have with anyone else. Then you see him come to do the stripping business with Forrest Gump, and you really see him finally like come to terms with himself, with his own spirituality. And by the time he goes to Forrest's wedding, he's walking on his own prosthetic legs. And he's also like got a haircut. He shaved too, and he got a wife too. So he really was transformed from like Forrest's presences in life. Even though at first it was like Forrest was a nuisance to Lieutenant Dan, he then realized Forrest was kind of like a blessing to him. Kind of like how most people in our lives, we don't realize that they're a blessing in our lives until later on in life.
Yeah, and I think what happened to Lieutenant Dan as well, because he was so proud. He came from this like family where there was so many sacrifices to each and every war that Americans had fought for. So he was very proud, and he thought he was the one who was labeled for Vietnam War. When it did not happen and he came back in Vietnam, he was a lieutenant, and he had his orders and he had his team, he had authority, and he felt important, right? Mm-hmm. But when the war happened, I think more than him losing his legs, it was the biggest devastation for him was him losing his personality. He lost who he was, the purpose, and at the same time the self-importance. Then when he came back, that's why like he still wanted to hold on to that authority in such some way. The only way he could do that is with Forrest Gump, because for him, no matter what, it was the lieutenant who was giving orders, and he's the one who started the Baba Gump shrimp business, but in the end it
Yeah.
was the lieutenant who was running it, right? So he liked that, but I think it was pride. It was not like a really bad kind of a pride that I'm saying, but it really helped him when Forrest Gump actually gave him that authority and that respect that he was really craving for after he left Vietnam. And yeah, like you said, that is why I really like his character, Lieutenant Dan, because he has such a lovely character arc. Beautiful, really. Like it gives you some hope, because when he lost his legs, I really felt so sad. I was like crying the whole time.
Yeah. So I know this movie has a very, I don't want to say sanitized version of history, but a very twisted version of history. Did you learn anything new about American history by watching this movie?
To be honest, Jason, because this movie is about the Vietnam War, so it is from the one of the major things that happened was from the Vietnam War. So I have read a lot of books and watched a lot of documentaries. So even though I'm not a person who does not watch movies because I was not exposed to them, I have watched a ton of documentary on World War II, Vietnam War, and all the other proxy wars as well. I think I knew a lot from there, but that's that way in Forrest Gump. They did not try to address what was going on in Vietnam. It was just specific what was happening with Forrest Gump and his teammates. But I actually found it very interesting when they, even though it was hilarious, when they dropped him in this the historic scenes. I thought it was brilliant because that way you actually see actual footage which is bit distorted to bring this person in, but those things really happen, like the Alabama, the racial that situation that happened when finally the black students could go to school where the white students attended. So those kind of things, I thought it was very interesting, but I do not see Forrest Gump as something that gives that much of extreme insight to the American history. But I thought it is a beautiful introduction for different people living in different places, especially when eventually Forrest Gump, he did his 3 years run. So he goes through US and certain different parts and different people, the people's different ideals, so ideologies and things like that. That's what I actually learned from the movie. And at the same time, I watched Forrest Gump. And afterwards, I watched a documentary about Alabama, and this house was there. It's about the planter's house. And he mentioned that his mother's grandfather's grandfather's grandfather came 1,000 years ago. So they were actually planters in Alabama, and they may have had slaves at the time. But I thought it gave cues if you want to learn a bit more about history, so you know where to pick up and actually research for it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point to that as well. I was just thinking, like, there are some certain scenes that I think people who are from the U.S. or have studied U.S. history will, like, laugh at that because they know the reference behind it. For me, one of the scenes that made me laugh a lot was when Forrest was at the Watergate Hotel and he saw some men, like, with flashlights in the hotel.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, I think you need to go do some maintenance because I think the lights went out. That's what made me laugh a lot. So it's like little moments like that, like, that's what I was asking for. But I like your answer too. That, like, they twisted it around to, like, say, oh, that's what really happened, you know, for the story, you know.
Actually, Jason, because like I said, I've never been to the US, but read about US history. So it's really interesting how you perceived it. But for me, I really laughed. I thought it's so cute. This man is thinking they are stuck there trying to find the switch.
Yeah, so that's something I also want to talk about because it's just a good film as it is. There are criticisms for this movie that I think are valid. I do share some of the insights for the criticism. I will talk about that later. But overall, as a film, it does a great job because, like you said earlier as well, the direction, the acting, the music by itself is amazing because they got music from all across the decades of America, and they also created a soundtrack specifically for the film. And just the engineering behind the video effects and how they set up like a revolution of visual effects in movies from the 1990s all the way up to now. They kind of set the foundation for that in the 90s. So as a film, it's a very well made film, and it works. And did you know there was actually going to be a sequel made?
Oh, really? They're still thinking about it?
I don't think they're thinking of doing that anymore, but they were thinking about it back then because the writer of the book wrote a novel, because it's based off the book, and he wrote a sequel to the book, and the book starts by Forrest Gump saying, "Don't ever let anyone make a movie about your life." So it's kind of like the real version of what happened to Forrest, and it's set in kind of like in the 21st century. And those plans just never went through. But I think it's fine because it stands by itself very well.
I think so, Jason, because sometimes certain movies like this, I think it's difficult to nail a sequel. Really, when you have such a successful movie, it's so difficult. Very few movies have done that. I've been lucky to watch a few, like Alien and then Aliens and things like that. So they actually do justice to the initial movie. But I think Forrest Gump by itself is a brilliant movie, full stop. Mm-hmm. Some may be able to do it, like elevate it, but I think the way we watched it, and most of the viewers may agree as well, you can't actually elevate it any further because it ended in such a sad note anyway. But at the same time, there was finally hope for Forrest Gump with his little Forrest Gump, the son.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard to top that movie. You know, it's really hard because like so many people already liking it. It was so, like you said, so successful. How do you like one step above it? I'm not sure how you could do that. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So I guess now it's time we can talk about the behind the scenes of Forrest Gump, and I understand you have some questions for me about the production.
Okay, actually, Jason, I had a few questions. Like one of the major questions, I do not know what Tom Hanks' age was by the time he was acting this role, but Tom Hanks acting, his accent, I don't think he's from, I do not know his background. Was he from a southern end? Like his accent was spot on, and the way he weaved, and I thought he was someone who was in his 20s when he was acting this. So I was like really surprised someone who was in his like 20s giving such stellar performance. Like, do you have any idea about like Tom Hanks, how he trained to become Forrest Gump character?
Yeah, so like you said, the voice for Forrest Gump, he was inspired to do that voice from the actor, the little boy who played young Forrest Gump. So the young Forrest Gump character, that was his actual voice. That was the way he actually spoke. And there was a scene that was cut from the film, but they're kind of like both together, where it kind of show like how they like aged, whatever. And when he met him on set, he's like, "Oh, okay, so this is how he does his voice. That's how I'm gonna do my voice." So that's how he got the voice for Southern accent. As far as his background, I didn't know this until I did more research into this, but he was 37 when he made this movie. And I knew who he's young, but he was close to middle age at that point. And he's been acting since he was at least 21, maybe even younger. He first started out in theater, and then he did movies. He had done like 19 movies before he had done Forrest Gump. Some of them not in leads, but he's had experience well before Forrest Gump.
That explains, because I really thought that he looked really young. I did not think he was in his 30s. No way. I really would think he's like 25. And that's why I was like so impressed. I'm still impressed even though I hear that he was 37 when he acted this.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that how he actually looked so young and portrayed such a character, but at the same time the accent I mean, I'm a person who can't imitate an accent very well, so I'm really
Me neither.
impressed how I'm really impressed how he did it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm just amazed by actors in general. I've tried acting a few times when I was younger. I found out when I was
Ah,
20. I came to the realization when I was 20. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, and so I went to directing instead.
but maybe give it some time. Maybe it'll come
Maybe,
naturally to
maybe.
you. Yeah.
I've got more comedic chops now. I know how to make people laugh now, so maybe I do comedy.
That'll be good. That'll be good.
What was the second part of your question? Like, what was his background?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, was he from the South Carolina side? I do not think so.
I don't think
No,
so. Yeah.
not Carolina, the Alabama, because the way he spoke, I really thought he is from there. And I wonder how old was his mother, because the mother's character was there from when he was young all the way until she passed away. So she looked very old, and I think the way they did her the makeup and everything is was really spot on. But then the actress was superb. I do not think I have seen her before in any other movies that I have watched, but
Hmm.
the way she transformed from a young mother to this old lady, I felt so convinced that she was this old lady, that she would have been the same age from the time they started the movie and they ended the movie. Actually, it's just brilliant. Actually, do you know,
Yeah.
have you watched her any movies from her before?
No, but my one of my film professors has talked. Oh wait, she was in the Amazing Spider-Man, the one from 2012, the one with Andrew Garfield. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie, but she was Aunt May in that movie.
I've never watched a Spider-Man movie. No, I haven't
Oh,
watched
you
any
get.
Spider. I'm a person who has.
I'm excited for you to watch them. I'm excited for you to watch them because I want to see your reaction to that as well. So I guess if that's not already on your list, it should be on your list.
Oh, is it? I have not watched any of superhero movies. None. None at
Wow.
all. So
Okay.
I really think I should touch upon them because they're so popular, and I really have not watched.
Just put on the title video. First time watching Spider-Man, you'll probably get like 50,000 views in a week.
Yeah, most of people will not believe, like, what? She's lying for sure. But I really have not. Yeah, I can't speak for something. I have not watched it at all. None of them.
So she's like one of those actresses that's been around a while. She's like someone in the 20th century. She was in a lot of movies. I'm not sure you would have seen them anyway. There's one called The Flying Nun, Smokey and the
Yeah.
Bandit, Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, I haven't seen most of her films as well, but I do know she was an established actor before
Mm.
Forrest Gump as well. And she was also not as old either. She was around like 45, maybe a little older when she was in that film. So I think she was able to portray Forrest's mother when he was young, and then later she was able to play old. Speaking of actors who can play young and old, you'll be surprised. There's this movie called Citizen Kane. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's considered one of the best films ever.
It has been proposed for me to watch, actually. Yes, so many
Yeah.
people have asked me to watch because I watched some Wild West movies. People come through different angles, and Citizen Kane is one of the best movies in from the American, I think, Hollywood history. So they really have been asking me to watch. I'll be watching it sometime. Yeah, I have not so far.
Well, I won't spoil the whole film, but I'll give you background to it. So, the lead actor was also the director for the film, and it was his first film he'd ever done, and it's considered one of the best movies ever. And he was only 25 when he made that film. And he played a young man and he played an old man, like up until like
Oh.
60s, an old man. And when I saw that movie, I was like, he was 25 when he made this, and it was his first film? Are you kidding me?
It has to be a really good performance because everybody's saying you should watch it. This is one of the best movies, so it has to be.
Yeah, and I don't want to give it too much hype. I don't want to give you too much expectations for it, but that's why I was impressed with that movie. And I also like it because it's still relevant to like media entertainment today, even though it was like made like almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, right? Like making a movie that can stay relevant to all
Hmm.
ages throughout years. So that is a tough one, but very few movies have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions about the production that you were curious about?
Actually, I had a few questions which I shared with you before, and you had answered. One of the major things that I was curious is how they did that scenes of dropping Forrest
Yeah.
Gump in the historic scenes. That was really brilliant. To be very honest, Jason, when you mentioned about blue screen, I had no idea about blue screen. If I were Tom Hanks, I would be like, "What is blue screen?" I only got to know green screen very recently, so it was very interesting to know when you mentioned
Yeah.
about this. The skin tone, the blue is the only color that is not represented in our skin. So that was one question that I really had about how they made it. And the other one was, did they really film it in Vietnam, or was it Thailand or Cambodia? That's where I was thinking. Really, I was so
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, so green screen and blue screen, they're like the same methods, and people will either use one or the other depending on the costumes that the actors are wearing in the scene. So if an actor, let's say, has makeup and there's supposed to be like a green alien, there's like green makeup, they wouldn't use a green screen because it will blend with the background and the elements might show up on their face when it shouldn't. So they might use a blue screen in that case. So it's really like the same method, it's just different color screen. And as far as like how they're able to like transport it to like different how it looked like Vietnam, it's hard to notice if you're not really paying attention. But like the background, they added like mountains and other forest areas to make it look like it was Vietnam, but it wasn't. So like in that scene where they're walking down the path,
Yes.
you can see like little mountains right there and like trees that are native to South Carolina. That's how they added it in, and they did a really good job for 1994. You could tell the amount of passion they put into the craft for this film because it looked convincing.
So in 1994, CGI was available. So there was CGI used because I did not see it. I really did not notice it in
Yeah.
the forest scene. I really was convinced they filmed it in Cambodia or Thailand or Vietnam itself.
It's like a combination of things. So they use practical effects, stuff that is actually in the scene, with a combination of visual effects that they added in later. So that's like the best use of CGI. And the thing is, they were just starting to use this stuff because beforehand they had this different method of putting special effects in that was very meticulous. They actually had to work with the film. They didn't have a computer to do all that animation stuff, and it's hard to say it without like showing you what it looked like. But unfortunately, I don't have like the pictures. But Industrial Light and Magic, which is the visual effects company that was created by George Lucas to make Star Wars, that was the same company that worked on this movie, the visual effects for this movie. And so they revolutionized how they're able to do that. And there are some moments where it looks like there's no CGI, but there's a lot of CGI. So do you remember that scene when the two women leave Lieutenant Dan's apartment and he's on the
Yes.
floor and how he swings around?
Oh yes.
The furniture is not real. That was digitally added in.
No, I did not notice because my eyes were set on him. I was like thinking, how
Yeah.
did they do with because his legs are no more. I was like, oh, how did they do that actually? Because
Yeah.
there's no legs. And he actually somehow lifts himself up to the wheelchair, but it cuts to a different scene because it was a difficult shot, I think. But how did they do that? I'm like really confused in that one.
That's a combination of computer screens and also blue screen. So they wrapped his legs in blue cloth so that they were able to digitally replace it in the post-production. So the scene where he's lifted up by the soldier out of his bed, there were holes in the bed and his like legs were like in the holes. And so when the soldier lifted him, he had to like lift him all the way up to make sure that when he swung him around, his legs wouldn't dangle and hit something else to make the shot unconvincing. And then later on, they had to digitally add in like stuff over the holes to make it look like there's nothing there. There's no holes, and they had to replace like the blue cloth on his legs to make it like replaced with nothing afterwards. And they added more bandages to the end right there. So it's a technique that's even I was like confused, like how did you do that? And then it wasn't until I watched the special features on like my Blu-ray player that I was like, oh, that's a lot of work you guys put into this. So it's a combination like practical and also computer graphics that was added into that one. And that scene on the boat,
Yeah.
No, what are you saying?
No, exactly. The scene on the boat, I was thinking about again when Lieutenant Dan was there. He again swings on top on the edge of the boat. It's like, whoa, there has been a lot of work going on to it. When the way you are describing how they do it, whoa.
So that one, I used to think that he actually like had to lift his legs over, but no, that little section of boat wasn't there. So he actually like swung his legs like normal. They just added in that chunk of boat afterwards.
Nice. That's really interesting. Like I wouldn't have thought because I watch movies, but I do not know about the production side of it. But it's really interesting. That is one thing. Like I was not thinking about that, but when you asked me if I have questions, is one thing that came to my head. How did they do it with his legs? Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, it's something I've wondered for years as well. When I was 14, over a decade ago, I watched the movie for the first time. I was like, wait a minute. I know it's not real, but I don't know how they did it. But now I know. It's like something that, it's still, like some parts of the movie, like the computer graphics still holds up to today. Some of them didn't, but the majority of it did. And it's good. It's a good stuff that they had right there. For the protest scene in Washington, D.C., that one, I wasn't sure how they did it because it is near, I don't want to say it's near impossible to fill up so many people like around that lake. It's not impossible, but the logistics of that is a nightmare. What they did is they only casted a few hundred people, and they had them pictured in different sections. So like, let's say at one part they'll be filmed like at the front, and another part filmed the other side, fill up the left side and then the right side all together, and then they composited all the images together to make it look like they were all in one spot. And then they added more CGI characters in there to make it look more full.
Oh, I see. I think this must be a technique that they may be using in other movies as well then, because there are some movies where you have like hundreds and hundreds of people. Then, obviously they're not going to pay hundreds and hundreds of people to appear there. Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting.
Logistics of that it's a nightmare. Even for like the small amount of people, it wasn't a small amount, it was like a few hundred people. That's still a lot of people there. It's still, like I said, a nightmare because you have to manage all those people. It's a lot to handle. And even during that production, it gets very cold, and I'm not sure when they filmed it, but it must have been during the winter because it got so cold that half the people who were there left after lunch. Because they couldn't stand being outside for so long.
Was it? Oh no.
Yeah, it's cold. You don't want to stay outside in the cold. For what? For a movie that you're not even going to be... It's like you're barely facing the movie, so why are you still there?
I would, because the country that I live in is really hot throughout the year. We have 3 seasons. It's like hot, hotter, and hottest. So for us, we will exchange it for any time. I will stay outside in the cold for a whole day if I could.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a little bit about the visual effects on that. Did you want to hear about the controversy behind the author being paid?
Sure. I did not know that. I actually didn't know this was from a book in the first place. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's very different. They had to go for like 12 different... I haven't read it, but from what I've read on Wikipedia, I can see it's very different. And there's some things in the movie that don't happen in the book, like when he's running across the country. That doesn't happen in the book.
Oh, okay.
This is a classic example of Hollywood accounting, and I think you'll like learn the concept, what I mean by Hollywood accounting after I tell you about this. So Winston Groom was paid $350,000 for the rights to the screenplay, to like just to make the book into a screenplay, and he was contracted for a 3% share of the film's net profits. And net profits is like what happens after you like pay for everything. Unfortunately, Paramount and the film's producers did not pay him the percentage because they used Hollywood accounting to posit that the blockbuster film actually lost the money. Because when they did all these stuff, they actually showed, even though it had millions and millions of dollars in the box office, they could say that they lost money so that they didn't have to pay him. Tom Hanks, on the other hand, he contracted for a percentage share of the film's gross receipts. Not the net profits, the gross receipts, instead of a salary. And so he and director Zemeckis each received $40 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. And he also, Winston Groom was not even mentioned once in the film's 6 Oscar winner speeches. So they won 6 Oscar Academy Awards. He was not mentioned once.
That is...
And he was really mad. Like, they didn't pay him his money. They didn't even thank him for the success.
That is a rip-off.
Yeah. So you see this happen like a lot. They make it so that they'll account that they lost money so they don't have to pay taxes. That's how all those Hollywood films look like. So if you ever are working on a Hollywood film, ask for like the gross receipts, I guess. Don't ask for the net profit, ask for the gross receipts. But this happened in the 90s, so maybe look more information to that. But that's something that I've heard happen. I wouldn't say 1,000 times, but I've heard it happen like a few times. That it's just unfortunate that it keeps happening. And so Winston Groom, the author, he had a dispute with Paramount, and it was effectively resolved after Paramount gave an explanation of the accounting, and they gave him like almost like $1 million, maybe even more, to get the rights to the next movie for the sequel novel. So the
Which
sequel
never
to
happened.
the book. Yeah, the sequel to the book, it happened, like the actual sequel book exists, but the movie has never happened. Yeah, it's been, how do you say, they call it development hell because it hasn't been made in years.
Yeah, but that is actually interesting to know, but at the same time quite sad, because you take the concept out of this book and you owe it to the person who actually came up with it. And
Yeah.
if you do not actually pay him his dues, which he very well deserved, then that is really sad, because this is definitely a highly grossing movie, and it's so popular to this date, and it will continue to be popular. He should be paid in royalty, actually. He really should
Yes.
be.
And fortunately, he did eventually get paid a lot. And you see this with, like you said, you haven't seen superhero movies, so you probably wouldn't know. But a lot of the superhero movies get their story ideas from the comic books, and men and women who wrote the comic book don't get the rights to the film. So even though it's not their character, it's not their intellectual property, they still wrote the story, and that sold a lot of books that made the character popular. But they don't even get the credit in the movie when they use that storyline in the movies. So yeah, you see that happen to this day still.
Yeah, because like when comic books have been there for years, right? Like that's what we read when we were young, and before that, and now. So these are like old concepts, and I do not know how true to the comic book the characters are. Maybe they actually adapt the character from the comic book and then twist the story the way they want it. But again, like you said, because the originality of the character comes from that comic book, and in that case, there is belongingness to the person who actually came up with the idea. Yeah, that's quite sad, but I think I understand the reality of the world.
And now a word from our sponsors. Now back to the show.
So our next movie is The Duellists. So The Duellists is a 1977 British historical drama film and the feature directorial debut of Ridley Scott. It won the Best Debut Film Award at the 1977 Cannes Film Festival. The basis of the screenplay is the Joseph Conrad short story, The Duel, published in a set of 6. The film stars Keith Carradine, Harvey Keitel, and Albert Finney. So this film was on Jason's list. Jason, why was this movie on your list?
So I'm not sure if you know that I'm a filmmaker, so I was looking for inspiration for sword fights because I want to make a samurai short film in the near future.
Whoa, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Thank you. I do my best. I do my best. I just plan out the movies first. So I was watching a bunch of like samurai scenes on YouTube, and then the YouTube algorithm gave me this a clip from The Duellists, which is like the very first duel that you see where he's fighting like the mayor's nephew. And I liked it because it was one of the most realistic scenes I'd seen of what would actually happen I'm sure what a duel actually looked like back then, because the man was scared, rightfully so, because you're fighting with weapons and you could possibly die from this.
Yes.
That's why it was on my list, and yeah.
So actually, yes, like you said, the fights appearing in The Duellists are like spot on how they did it, and I think there must have been a lot of research going on to it, and maybe experts who have come on board to help them with this real sword fighting. But the questions will come later. But before that, I wanted to know, so who's your favorite character? Did you have a favorite character, or if you didn't like a character there?
So at first, I liked their French names, so I'm terrible with French.
Me
The
too.
main, I like the main character. I think his name, yeah, Dubert. I liked him at first, and I hated Ferrol for Harvey Keitel. That's his name. That's his. At first, I liked Dubert because he was very fancy. Like I liked the way he spoke,
Yeah, yeah.
and I hated Harvey Keitel's character because he was just a pest. He was just a bully throughout the whole film. But afterwards, I was like, I kind of like both characters because the reason this film is so interesting is because they're so different in their attitudes and like the way they see life. But overall, I like Dubert more than Farod because he just wants to end the fight. And that's what I like about people, when people who know that like the fight shouldn't happen and they do the best to like de-escalate, but they have to fight anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, yes. Sometimes when we start watching the movie, like you said, yes, you may dislike the character initially because of how blunt they may be or how arrogant they may look like, snobbish actually. But eventually you understand why the character is so. Then actually you start liking and sympathizing and empathizing actually more with the characters. Yeah, I do agree with you.
I liked how do you say, I can't say his name for road. I'm just gonna say the actor's name, Harvey Keitel's character, because his background is similar to mine. He comes from a working class background and he had to work his way up in the military because back then the officers were only from noble background
Aristocrats.
and it wasn't until Napoleon came in that civilians could come in and also grow in rank. So he was very much a huge supporter of Napoleon, and he had to fight his way up to the top. But he had a different method of doing that. And the reason why Dubert was able to go up in rank is because of the connections he knew.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. It's important because I think most of us will identify with the latter person first because like you said, back then the wars and I think until World War II even, the generals and the people, the officers were mostly the aristocrats. They had the connections, their network, and the family, and all this and that. But the rest were from the working class. The background had to be just the soldiers and had to be in the front line. But yeah, like you said, it's a really interesting way how you can identify with the character with your background. That's very interesting. So when you watch the movie, like you said that you watched it because you wanted to learn a bit about this sword fighting and things like that, but were there anything that actually surprised you in the movie?
Yeah, so there were a couple scenes, and it mostly had to involve the duels. So the second duel between the two men, the duelists, when he just pokes him with the sword and he starts bleeding, and then the fight ends. Just as soon as the fight started, it's over. And that's what I was like, wow. That was way too quick.
You're saying the rapier, right? The rapier he used.
Yeah, the rapier. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So that was the one that I was just like surprised at because it was just so quick, and you even saw his frustration too. Like, it's over, really? Come on.
He has been watching too many Hollywood movies. In real life, it can be quite fast. I think that's a good thing about this movie because they actually brought so much. Like I have watched a few. There are some actually YouTube channels that I watch from the historians and especially from the UK and all about sword fighting, and they have actually trained professionals, and it's amazing how fast it can end. If we are so used to seeing movies and the medieval times and so on, the fighting goes on and on. That's an interesting entertainment for us, right? But in reality, it can end so fast. And like you said, in this one, because they tried to make it as real as possible, they invested so much time and research to make it as real. I think that's why like you said, there were seconds the fight started and just it ended.
Yeah, and the other scene was when they're in like that little tunnel. It looked like a tunnel. I think it was just like a barn, and they're tired, and they're still trying to kill each other. They're both bloodied,
Oh yeah,
and they're
it's a
still
barn.
trying to
Barn.
fight each
It's a
other.
barn.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
barn,
Yeah.
yeah. And it gets to the point where like they both can't just keep fighting, so they just like try to like wrestle at the end. I was like, okay, guys, it's over. It's over, guys. Come on, stop.
But it's a concept that we actually sometimes don't understand. This dueling, right? It's a concept that we really do not understand. It was like a question for me when I watched as well. What the heck is going on? Why are they fighting all the time? This is this honor and this dueling, the whole situation. But it's really interesting. I think the movie wasn't a very long movie. It was about 1 hour
An hour 40.
40 minutes, yeah. So that's
hour
I
and 40
think it's a very decent time for a movie, because it can keep you so invested, and then it just takes you through the movie. But once you finish the movie, so what were your thoughts as you finished?
I was just thinking, finally, like, you found a way to like stop it. You found a way to like, he didn't have to kill him at all. Just like the monologue, he said, "You've been a pain on my side for the past 16 years. Now I have you at the end of my gun. I will treat you like a dead man so you can never bother me again." I was just like, finally! You could have let this go years ago! From the very first moment.
Okay, you felt relieved. You felt like you were the one who was tortured for 16 years.
Yeah. Because you kind of see this in, and even today, like, some people, they call it beef in America. Like, oh, you have beef with me? Which is like,
Yeah.
you have, yeah. And it's like, no, dude, I bumped into you by accident, okay? I apologized. I'm gonna move on with my life. That some people just like, are just insecure. Like, I'll even say this today. As I've grown older, I realized that the most dangerous people in the world are insecure men. You see this with like people in positions of power. I'm gonna say his name. You see it with Putin as well. Unfortunately, with the stuff that's going on right now, and you see this in this film right here. The antagonist of the film, he's kind of at war with himself. Like he's not satisfied with anything. He's not satisfied when he beat the mayor's nephew. And he's not satisfied after like the first duel or the second duel or the third duel. He has to keep going. So that's kind of like my own deeper meaning to this. Like, just let it go. You don't need to go.
Yeah. What you're saying is really true. Some people, it's what they come at us. It's not that they have something personal with us, but they have things to sort out themselves. And it's their own insecurity, it's their own confidence issues. But so they are sometimes really capable, like in this movie, but they are not convinced and they are not happy with themselves, like you said. That's really true. But I actually have a few questions in this movie, because it's, again, like I said, it's something, when I watched the movie, I thought it was the concept of dueling is something very it's not, we watch movies, and when we were young as well, we watched sword fights, but not this dueling, and the whole concept they try to bring upon this like dueling and respect and honor, that kind of a situation. Like, do you have like any information on the history of dueling, how this actually started?
It's one of those things where like I've known about it for years, but I never really did research into it. It's even parodied in some comedy shows that I watched as well. He said, "You offended me, sir. I demand satisfaction." And then the other characters, "Wait, do you want him to have sex with you?" No, what? What I do know about it is like what I've read about in Wikipedia. So I'm just going to read what I have from Wikipedia right here. So the concept of dueling. In Western society, the formal concept of a duel developed out of a medieval judicial duel and older pre-Christian practices such as the Viking Age holmgang, which was how they settled disputes, which is like a similar to a duel, but like the Viking Age way. In medieval society, judicial duels were fought by knights and squires to end various disputes. By the outbreak of like World War I, dueling had been made illegal almost everywhere in the Western world, because it was widely seen as like what they called anachronism, because it was mostly done for people in higher rank, in higher society or whatever. So let's say one man offended another, like, oh, you offended me, sir. I'm going to list out the ways you offended me, and I demand an apology or satisfaction. And they'll fight to, like, regain their honor because maybe they're embarrassed by the interaction, but they don't know how to, like, regain the honor after that.
Yeah, they can't just say a simple sorry, I apologize. Just move on. I mean, you do not have to kill each other.
Express your feelings and apologize and ask for an apology.
This is another thing, Jason. Like, that just popped in my head. Like, we have become a lot more vocal people lately. It has been accepted to be okay to be vocal about emotions lately, but previous times it wasn't. You wouldn't actually vocalize your emotions mostly. So especially if you are sad or if you are feeling down, you will never say I'm depressed. No, right? Or you will never say I was hurt, because it was something to do with pride at that time. So the people thought sharing an emotion with normal person, I think people, even in the most intimate kind of situations, like intimate as in, like, let's say spouse to spouse, may even not share their actual emotions because of that pride and the way the world actually worked. Maybe that's why they did not actually apologize. Maybe apologizing was deemed as something weak. So maybe that's why they had to actually fight. Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
And you're right. It's a recent thing too. It's more acceptable to express your feelings and stuff. And I come from, like, a stubborn family, and I find myself still being stubborn to people, like, oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. No, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, like, for me, the same. The way I was brought up, I studied in a convent. And but I'm a Buddhist myself, but I studied in a Catholic convent. It was run by the nuns, and we had a mother, and it's very strict, So you are not actually supposed to be emotional. You are supposed to hide your emotions, and you are supposed to be more functional, resourceful, not address about your emotions and waste time. That's how I was brought up. So sometimes I also feel like, when I see the younger crowd, so I'm not as young as you, obviously, and so when I see the younger crowd, the way they are expressing their emotions, then I find a big difference actually. So the difference in age may be a decade, but a huge difference the way they vocalize it. But I think it is good as well, because not everybody is able to bottle up and then just go ahead. Yeah, we went from dueling to emotions anyway.
Yeah. So you're not 25?
I wish. A decade ago I was.
Speaking of, like, dueling, so it was mostly, like, people of, like, the same rank who will duel each other, because someone was, like, of lower rank. So, like, let's say a general wanted to challenge a duel with someone who was, like, a private or, like, an entry-level army person. I don't know these military terms. They couldn't do it because that was illegal. Like, why are you picking on that small man? He's only a private. Like, you can't do that. So that's why you see in the film, Dubert was frustrated. Like, what rank is he? He's captain. Oh, he's just like me. So that's why he was able to challenge him to a duel, because of their same rank. But by World War I, they said, no more of this, because a lot of them were trained, and they were, like, funded and trained by the military to go to school, to become an officer, and then to eventually, like, do war, essentially. So why are you fighting each other, killing each other? So essentially, like, we're wasting money on these young men who are doing this. So that's why it became illegal. That's why it was even legal back then. They should have been court-martialed, but because they were during the Napoleonic War, they couldn't really fight it against. They couldn't be court-martialed. So it was looked down upon, essentially, for, like, a while, even, like, before World War One. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the musical Hamilton, but it's based off one of the founding fathers of the United States of America. He was the first treasurer of the United States, and he had a duel, and he died in that duel. And it was, like, the early 19th century, so, like, early 1800s or so. And even by then, it was looked down upon, because they had to go somewhere else to go have the duel so they wouldn't be caught.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. It's very interesting. I had no idea. After this, I will research about it. Yeah, but also looking at the movie, Do you know any information on the costume designs? Because I think the way they did it was like beautifully done, and it looked so authentic to the time.
Yeah, so Tom Rand was the costume designer for this film. From what I've read, it's probably like one of the most accurate costumes to that era because even the hair, the way they had their hair was accurate because Harvey Keitel's hair, at one point, he had like a little ponytail towards the side in like the first duel between Dubert and Farouk. And it was just like small details that they noticed that it was all very accurate according to my sources, and he did such a good job with this. He was even hired to do other films around this era type of film, and he was hired to do The Counts of Monte Cristo in 2002 based off his work in this film. So it just goes to show that if you want to get work, you got to do a good job, have a good portfolio, so that maybe 30 years from now you'll have a job because of something you did 30 years ago.
Yeah, actually, very true. Because I also noticed the costume designs were really authentic. Because, like I said, I have watched and followed a lot of these documentaries, and then people who are specializing in these kind of costume designs, the periodic costume designs, and I thought the amount of effort they have gone to and to it is amazing, and to know that this was Ridley Scott's first feature film, right? So
Yeah.
I think okay, undoubtedly he is a genius. His movies, I watched only another one movie from him, Alien. So, but impressive. It's totally different, Alien, and then you see
Yes,
the Duellists,
definitely.
like absolutely different. You can't even believe this
Completely.
is the same director. Yeah, exactly. So, but I was really impressed by the costumes. But one thing, because Jason, you are into the movie production that you said, right? Like the to direct in movies. So I would love to know if you have any idea about how the cinematography and the filming techniques of this movie, because there were some beautiful scenes that they had used in this movie, but like any information that you have about the filming techniques there and the cinematography and so on.
Yeah, so Ridley Scott, he had a lot of experience before this as well. This is his first film, but not his first production in a way. He had directed close to 1,000 to 2,000 commercials before this movie, and he wanted to direct a film. Yeah, it's impressive. He wanted to make a movie for decades at that point, but no one was gonna give him any money, so he didn't write the script. He kind of got the idea from like the short story and then hired someone else to write the script. And then he was able to get funding for this. But it wasn't a lot of money. They only had like $1 million for this movie, which is not a lot for this type of movie. For like a periodical drama, that is very little money. But he used his experience in like production design and directing to make sure that you don't really see too much outside of what's going on between the two characters and what else is there. Because they had little money, they didn't waste money on sets. All the places you see in this movie are real. So all the like the ruins, all the locations, they're actually based in like France and other parts of Europe. So it was all real because they couldn't afford to like build their own set.
That's I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there because you mentioned about the budget. Because for me, when it comes to The Duelist, it's a beautifully done movie, like done to perfection with the techniques, the costumes, what they were trying to discuss there. And it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but you said it's $1 million. Yes, for the 1977, it may sound like quite a lot. But I watched another movie recently from 1977 that was A Bridge Too Far. Okay, that is the World War II movie. And that movie had $25 million budget. So that was another epic movie actually. But just to think, in the same year, these two movies came, $1 million and $25 million. I think he did amazingly well for the budget he had.
Yeah. Well, I know how far he went with the budget. So it was so tight that Keith Carradine, the man who played Dubert, said that one of the horse-drawn carriages had the back half painted red and the front part painted black, so it could double as two different vehicles in the film.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I know. We didn't notice that though. You can't
No,
notice
I
it.
never.
No, yeah.
If I didn't read that, I never would have noticed. It's
Yeah, now I'm thinking about no. Yeah, wow. That's awesome.
And as far as like the cinematography, just like my long answer to get to the cinematography part. So the hallmarks of his visual aesthetic is with like stylish silhouettes, handheld camera work, lens flares, and soft light. So they used a lot of natural light for this film because they had a lot of influence from Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, another film that's like based around the same era. And then Stanley Kubrick was inspired by like real life paintings of that era. So the way Stanley Kubrick shot his film was as if it's from the painting itself. And so they also took that inspiration for the Duelist as well. So that's kind of like how he went about the cinematography, like how it will look like in a painting in the indoor scenes. And the indoor scenes were mostly with natural light. And for filming techniques, Ridley Scott had, like I said, he'd been doing this for quite a while, over 1,000 TV commercials. He knew how to handle a camera by then. So he operated the camera himself most times, and he used like a handheld camera to get close to the action. So like the first duel that you see between Dubert and Forrest, that's him actually holding the camera, and he had to dodge the swords as they're like, he's getting too close. He was actually talking directly to the actors while filming it. So like say, okay, another one. Oh!
Could have been annoying the actors though. Like did they actually bring the like specialists and actual for the, I think they must have had the specialist for the fight with the choreography and how the dueling is done and so on, so because they looked absolutely real, and like you said, it disappointed you that it ended so fast as the second one. Yeah.
William Hobbs was the fight director. He was also a fencing master and stuntman. He choreographed the action sequences for the Duelist, and he had also done other films beforehand. So he done the Three Musketeers, and then he was approached by Ridley Scott to choreograph the fight scenes for this film. Here's a quote that he told Hobbs: "I don't want any of that old tosh. I want it real," Scott told Hobbs, as quoted in Richard Cohen's 2010 book By the Sword. He said, quote, "From the beginning, I wanted to break away from all the Hollywood stuff I'd seen. What interested me was the story, the drama. I was excited by the people. The pauses that we put in the fights in the Duelists were phenomenal. But we wanted to get across the awful feeling that you believe you'll be dead on the floor. In the end, the realism is the fear."
Interesting. This is really interesting. What was the gentleman's name again?
William Hobbs.
William Hobbs. Okay.
A few more fun facts about the fight scene. So I want to verify this because this sounds almost too dangerous to be real. But according to Ridley Scott, both Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel insisted upon using real saber swords for the sword dueling sequences. The swords used by the French hussars in the first part of the movie are all English 1798 pattern light cavalry sabers. So they insist on using real swords. I'm calling bogus on this one because that is way too dangerous to do. And you're having the talent fight each other doing that. But this is in the director's commentary, and I haven't had a chance to listen to the director's commentary.
I think they may have used the real ones, Jason, because once you get the real one, yes, the actors become humans as well, right? Then you know what you are handling can be quite lethal. But maybe they actually had a lot of training by the choreographer and William Hobbs, and then at the same time maybe they actually invested a lot of time to learn this, because you can see the way the actors behave, the way they keep their hands, the body movements. Seems like they have done a ton of training on that. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually used the real ones.
I just say because like even with all that training, accidents happen. Accidents still happen. So I'll have to do more research on this one. Hopefully this will be in the show notes, because this is according to the director's commentary to the film, which I haven't really listened to because getting a copy of this movie on Blu-ray is, for some reason, very expensive. I didn't mention this, but guess how much the price for this movie is on Blu-ray?
I have no idea. Hundreds?
Yes, actually, yes. It's $129 for a Blu-ray copy
Whoa,
of this film.
No.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No.
As opposed to $2.99 on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
But then if you have the copy, then you can keep it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, for this podcast, I like to borrow a copy from the library because they usually come with special features and director's commentary into how the film was made. That's why I know a lot more about Forrest Gump, because they had a lot of special features. That's why I'm an advocate for physical media, like buying your own DVD and Blu-rays. Like, I'm not sure if you can see my shelf right here. The top shelf right here, that's the front row, and there's a back row behind the shelf of like DVDs and Blu-rays.
Oh, nice. But for the line of work that you are in, Jason, I think that is a good investment, because that's it is like your own library, like you said.
Yeah.
Then your friends can borrow.
That's what I think too. That's what I've been doing too. Another 2 fun facts. The swords were hooked up to batteries to produce the sparks in the barn. And Harvey Keitel was shocked a few times. He was shocked a few times, so that's why you might seem like jolts a little bit. I didn't even know that. I thought that was just like added in, but they were actually hooked to batteries. And the scene where, the very first fight scene, when he's fighting the mayor's nephew, when he like does like the sword thing, so they attached like a car antenna to the sword hilt so that it would retract as it went into his chest.
Oh. Okay, that's really interesting. But when you said about that they had the battery on, maybe it actually worked well with the budget that they had as well, rather than put in the effect later on.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to be the actor to get electrocuted. I think that's one thing happens as well, Jason. When you have a limited budget, you have to become creative, and your creativity flows. That is good. When you have big budgets, you do not have to be as creative. You can get all the specialists and do everything. Let them do what they know, right? But if not, you have to become resourceful. And this was a brilliant movie, though.
Yeah, another filmmaker I know who does well with both big budget and low budgets is James Cameron with the Terminator. So with the first Terminator, they didn't have confidence in him in what he was doing, so they gave him very little money for it. Most of the money went to Arnold Schwarzenegger because he was a star. He was like a rising star at that point. And even Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't too confident in the movie. So he worked really hard. James Cameron worked really hard to make sure this film worked. And you see it in the film. It worked.
I loved it.
And then 5 years later, with the sequel, and then they were able to add in all these new special effects, he was able to add it in because he knew how to spend it.
Yeah, actually, when I watched Terminator, the first one, I was so impressed how they used practical effects in so many things, because it was amazingly well done. And I think, Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time may have been the star adding the giving a notch up to this movie, but the movie definitely scaled him up eventually, because the movie was a brilliant movie. Loved the music, how they loved it. But I recently only watched Titanic. I have never watched Titanic. That is really sad. But from James Cameron, I wanted to watch Titanic when I was young, and because I come from a very conservative background, okay, so it's so difficult it's so difficult to watch. So I heard these movies like so steamy and everything, super excited to watch this movie. And I was like, and my cousin got the VHS at the time, okay, then we were like, finally the parents have gone out for something at night. I remember it was around 7:30. This was 1997. And then like so excited, sitting down to watch. And the moment the VHS goes in, it's like, it's black and white. All you see is, and you hear the audio only. It was such an anticlimax. It was so sad. So I recently only watched, I think 2 weeks ago, for this February, the Valentine's, I watched Titanic. So he had a huge budget there, Cameron, James.
Yes.
Cameron. Right, that was a massive budget, but wow. It was a beautiful movie.
Yeah. It surprises me because I have family members who live in El Salvador and Honduras who live in what we call the campesinos, like the very poor parts. And when I was younger, even they had seen it, had seen Titanic. So like they had.
After 24 years of waiting, I watched it this month.
Yeah, but that's fine. Like you have the benefit of watching them for the first time, and that is something that I'm a little jealous about. That I won't have that experience unless I watch something that's like more obscure or something that's new.
Yeah, but when I watched it, I was thinking it's a good thing the VHS didn't work because I wouldn't have been able to watch it with my cousins even because it was too steamy for my age at the time, and like I said, come from a very conservative background. But then when I watched it as well, I'm like, I don't know how to watch this. I wouldn't be able to watch it with my mother even now. No. About the duelist, I think, like I said, I just want to speak about it from the director's point of view, because what I have seen from Ridley Scott so far is only Alien at that point, and then when I watched the duelist, it's like totally different, and it's a very, actually 1 hour 40 minutes. It's a small time for a movie. It's a decent time actually. And I would definitely suggest, I think for a person like you said you watched it because you wanted to do your own movie and learn about this, how they did this sword fighting and things like that. I think it is a very historically accurate movie, like the way the techniques used. If you want to watch something that can be as realistic as possible, I would suggest someone to watch this movie because it is as realistic because some people get really put off when it is not historically accurate, or if something is not done this way. I in my comments I sometimes see people say, oh no, this movie was not historically accurate, da da da. But this like some people get really put off by it. But I think this is a movie, if you appreciate those kind of things, like the research that has gone to it and all, it's a really beautiful movie. But definitely it may put off some, because some people are like, why are they fighting non-stop? Like you said, it's like a headache, so like fighting. But no, I think I really enjoyed it. You enjoyed it too, right, Jason? Like,
Yeah.
Even though you actually started watching it for your own research, I'm sure you may have liked it. How did you find it actually when you look back? It's a movie that you would recommend to someone as well?
Yeah, I'll recommend to someone who would appreciate the world building, the production design, and like the action, because there's a little bit of something for everyone in this movie. So if you like action like I do, you'll appreciate the action in this movie. If you like the drama and the people going through their lives, you'll like this movie as well. That's what I think about this film. It's a little bit of something for everyone, but it may not be for everyone, but it's just like there are small bits in it that you may like in each part of this film.
That's true. I agree with you. Yes.
So that concludes our conversation today. Thank you so much, Chip, for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation. I know we had some sidetrack conversations, but it's always nice to have these sidetracks. I like sidetracking sometimes.
Thank you so much for having me here, Jason. As I said, this is my very first podcast. I've never been in one, so thank you so much for having me here. And I really liked our discussion and learned a lot of things as well. So after this, I can go research even a bit more. Actually,
one final question. Actually, two final questions. Were the movies a hit or a miss with you?
Both the movies definitely a hit. Definitely love both the movies for totally different reasons, but beautiful movies. I would definitely recommend to someone who would want to watch quality movies. I think Forrest Gump and The Duellists both are high quality movies in my opinion.
I agree with you there. They're very good movies that I should probably buy a poster for them soon. So where can we find you on social media?
Oh, Jason, I'm mostly available in 2 platforms. The first one is I have my YouTube channel. So you can find me at YouTube if you go type Honest Movie Reactions. If you type www.youtube.com/c/Honest Movie Reactions. That's how it goes. So that you can find me there. Or else I have all my full-length reactions over at Patreon. So if you go to Patreon and look for Honest Movie Reactions, you can find me over at Patreon as well.
Awesome. Well, that's all for today, folks. You've been listening to the Hit List Podcast. My name is Jason, and until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List Podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. It really does help. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Hitlist Podcast and Instagram at _hitlist_podcast.